Welcome back to another video. This will be the first part of a new mini-series on the future of work. I will cover how I believe remote work will stay and evolve after COVID, why decentralization away from corporations to solopreneurship will accelerate, impact and changes of the creator economy and part-time work, and how data, college alternatives, hands-on skills and experience will move the world away from credentialism. As always, the ideas I present here are mostly not formed by myself. I just distill them from smarter people, try to link them together, and then add a layer of my own thoughts. The vision comes mostly from Balaji, Naval, Chamat, Sahil, and others. To give you an example from Balaji, he was not only a very early Bitcoin adopter, but accurately predicted the consequences of COVID in January 2020, a time where most didn't take the situation serious at all. Let's get to the core of the first part of the series. The title already gives you a hint, it's about remote work. A recurring theme in the series will be decentralization. That can mean decentralization from a headquarter office into home offices or digital nomad style living, or decentralization away from a large corporation to one-person companies. Remote work is about the first part of that statement. Working remotely has already been a growing trend before COVID. But the pandemic was of course an extreme accelerator and the numbers will drop again to some degree after this is over. However, the acceptance of working remotely has improved massively over the last year. Many companies realized that people can get things done without being in the office. Twitter, for example, has become a remote-first company and so has Shopify. We will keep our offices closed until 2021 so that we can rework them for this new reality. And after that, most will permanently work remote. Also Slack, Square, Coinbase, Upwork and the list goes on and on with top-tier companies that allow their employees to work remotely indefinitely. Now the question that of course emerges is why? Why does this make sense from a company standpoint? The first reason they are going remote first is simple. It lets them hire more talented people. Rather than hiring the best person in a 30-mile radius of the office, they can hire the best person in the world for every role. But there's even more to it. You save office costs, employees are actually more productive and tend to work more rather than less, because they don't need to commute. A Harvard study found that the average workday increased by 8.2% or 48.5 minutes. And also, just like potential employees are competing for jobs, companies are competing for employees as well. Giving employees the option to work from wherever they want is a huge benefit and will likely be a must for many companies. According to a global workplace analytics survey of employees working remotely during the pandemic, 73% note that they are very successful when working from home and 86% say they feel fully productive. And of the 3,000 respondents, 76% want to continue working from home at least 2.5 days per week on average. Only 9% of people expect to return to working from the office 100% of the time. So as these numbers suggest, employees are asking to work remotely as well. So what about the employee perspective? Working remotely like it is currently happening is not for everyone. Some like it, others don't. But with a few changes that might happen over time, I assume that almost everyone will prefer it. But first of all, what exactly is the status quo? There's the good, no commute. Commuting is a major cause for stress impacting your health, unnecessarily lengthening your workday, meaning less time for your family, hobbies to stay fit through working out, and cooking healthy food. Before COVID, 25 million US workers spent 90 minutes or more commuting. In some Asian countries like South Korea, this is not uncommon at all. 25% of employees commute more than 90 minutes every day. There's also the flexibility to work location independent. When working completely remotely, it doesn't matter if you are 30 minutes away from the headquarters or on a different continent. Without the pandemic, I would be in Austria right now skiing for 4 months because I have that flexibility being remote since ever. Digital nomadism will rise along with more remote opportunities. And last but not least, employees are more independent in their style of work and how they approach projects. This is bad for middle managers that like to micromanage everything and everyone, but it's good for the employee and for the company when workers take responsibility and work more autonomously. Now the bad, work-life balance is a double-edged sword. Some have trouble to stop working and are still reachable via their phones long after they should have finished. There's also less to no social human interactions. A video call is not comparable to a person-to-person meeting. And some people experience a missing work mindset and therefore motivation as well as a missing dedicated workspace. But I believe that all of these bad things can be addressed and will be addressed, so let's look into the future of remote work. Chris Hurd wrote an excellent thread on Twitter about remote work after speaking to more than 1,500 people about the subject. As already mentioned, a missing element is social interactions and a dedicated workspace. This, however, is not necessarily a problem of remote work, but rather a problem of lockdowns. Being able to work remotely does not mean you have to work alone. I assume that most people would choose a hybrid solution, going into the company office for 1 or 2 days per week for meetings and creative workshops, working 2 days per week from home if they have a silent space there where they can create their best work distraction-free, and working in a co-working space for 2 days per week or so. Co-working spaces in general have a lot of potential because they allow you to hang with your friends. Everyone works on their own things, but there is time for collective hobbies. It's basically you choosing who you sit next to while working instead of an HR department picking friends for you. Another trend that links to remote work and is emergent is not just location dependency, but also time independency. This has 3 consequences. First, asynchronous work. Very few things need to be done by people at the same time. Offices are instantaneous gratification distraction factories where synchronous work makes it impossible to get stuff done. Tools that enable asynchronous work are the most important thing globally remote teams need. A lot of startups will try to tackle this. Secondly, output as the main KPI instead of time spent. Through more and better data, it becomes easier to quantify who brings the company the results it expects. This has little to do with the time someone spends and more to do with skills, focus, responsibilities, strategy, and execution. A great coder can achieve 10 times the results compared to a good coder, to give you one example. The need to pad out your 8-hour day will evaporate, replaced by clear tasks and responsibilities. Workers will do what needs to be done rather than wasting their time trying to look busy with the rest of the office. And output focus. Time will be replaced as the main KPI for judging performance by productivity and output. Great workers will be the ones who deliver what they promise consistently. Advancement decisions will be decided by capability rather than who you drink beer with after work. And the third consequence, you can structure your work around your life instead of structuring your life around your work. Organizing your work around your life will be the first noticeable switch. People realizing they are more than their job will lead to deeper purpose in other areas. So now we talked about the impacts on a company level and on an employee level, but there's actually more to it. Remote work can have an impact on city structures and society as a whole. In the past, major cities became clusters of people and organizations that profit from network effects. To get the best job, you needed to be in one of these clusters. To give you an example from the US, for tech, you go to Silicon Valley. For finance, you go to New York. To get the best employees, you needed to be in one of these areas as well. It's a closed cycle that gets stronger after every iteration. This creates spiking rent prices, more traffic than transport systems can handle, and gentrification. A world that mostly operates on a remote work standard would, at least to some degree, reverse this urbanization. You can have a great job while living in more rural areas. Employees can seek places that are not overcrowded and cheaper to live in, and public transport can become way faster and more efficient. World-class people will move to smaller cities, have a lower cost of living and higher quality of life. These regions must innovate quickly to attract that wealth. Better schools and faster internet connections are a must. This is also why I'm excited for Starlink that will bring fast internet to these rural areas. It's not cheap, it doesn't have much of a use case in cities, but it's a major factor in making rural areas more attractive to employees that need nothing else than an internet connection to get their work done. So the end note, at least from my side, remote work is here to stay and companies will have to adapt. The smartest people I know personally are all planning to work remotely this decade. The most exciting companies I know personally all plan to hire remotely this decade. 90% of the workforces we've spoken to never want to be in an office again full time. Thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and consider subscribing to not miss the rest of the Future of Work series, and I see you next time.